Organic food companies are labeling their products as fully organic when there are other non-organic ingredients to receive top dollar. Mr. Chi, I have a few questions to ask regarding organic food labeling.
Mr. Chi, what made you want to start eating organic foods?
Organic foods, the great thing about eating organic foods is that it makes life less complicated when you have to go to a doctor. Such as, when you eat organic foods, the things that you can't pronounce that is on the label, like what you were saying, that there's stuff that is in the foods that is not organic, such as plastic, such as chipped wood. These things are not there for you to really see clearly that you're eating it. Those are the things that gets you sick later on in life. So I eat organic food so that I may not live a million years, but I will not end up in a hospital because of what I eat.
Oh. How often do you eat organic foods?
I would say, as a person who's not a millionaire or billionaire, I eat organic foods maybe 80 to 90% of my life, every day. So I'm one of those people that you don't want to go to the grocery with because I read everything. I do not just buy something or pick up a product, buy it, go home and eat it and then read it. Or eat it like the taste and then later on somebody say, guess what? You know what they have inside of that?
What organic food stores would you recommend and why?
I would recommend Whole Food, Trader Joe's, and they're the only store I would recommend. The reason why they're the only store I would recommend is because those companies take a little more pride in being accurate, or more so accurate with the organic products. They don't want to get sued. So you go to the other grocery stores that want to make the same money or have the same type of traffic like Whole Food does, they will put up a little section and say organic, when in truth it's not organic or it's not fully organic. So my recommendation would be Whole Foods, Trader Joe's.
According to Organic Trade Association, U.S. sales of organic food and beverages have grown from $1 billion in 1990 to $24.8 billion in 2009. Why do you believe companies have jumped on the bandwagon?
That's a substantial number of an increase. The reason why they jump on the bandwagon is based on one thing: profit. Most of those companies don't really care about your life or you kids' life. They only care about how much money they make and what numbers they bring in. So if they have to mislabel or forget to put the word or the right spelling, they do that. Time the FDA get to them, you already have bought up X amount of millions, and then they go relabel, nice pretty color, and time the FDA get to them again, it's the same thing, and it goes on and on and on. So yes, the numbers has changed drastically because people in general start living longer. People in general start taking charge of their life and wanting to eat better. And I would say around in the 80s, when all of this started happening, before the 80s, into the 70s, into the 80s, people start changing the way they eat and the way they look at their own life. And when that started happening, the result of that is from, like you say, to 20 billion, from what, 1 million or 1 billion to 20 billion. That's like is like no comparison. But if you could, the sad thing that we're talking about is that you're talking $20 billion, and you could only maybe call one or two companies that you could trust, that will give you real organic food for your money. So you see how sad this is, that you're talking about only two companies you could call in comparison to 20 billion. And I know that 20 billion is now owned to Whole Food and Trader Joe's. So that means all that money goes to all the other companies that is lying. And the one or two half-lie, what we call a half-lie. What's a half-lie? What does he mean by half-lie? I didn't tell the full truth. I tell some of the truth. And a lot of companies do that with food products, which is sad. If it was about life, the numbers would have been showing in age, people living older and healthier and not having some of the diseases and sicknesses that they have based on what they eat all their life.
Do you believe that organic food companies falsely label their products, and why?
I do believe a lot of companies, I wouldn't say organic companies, because a real organic company don't have to falsely advertise. So I would say to you, I believe a lot of companies falsely advertise by putting organic on the labels for people to buy at a higher price. Now, there's ways that this happen, and there's many ways this happen. A good example for me is that you go buy a drink. The drink is a well-known drink on the internet with kids, but it's a Chinese drink. It's a Chinese soda pop example. So I use my own daughter as an example. She keep asking me to buy this buy it for us. You know what I did one day? I buy one. And first thing I noticed is that it was written in Chinese. And what was written in English, it just had one product there enough for me to know not to buy it, or not to have or drink it. But what I do is I teach her, say, look, see what's the first ingredient? High fructose sugar. And the next word came after was artificial flavoring. But this is a place that's selling it, that say they sell organic drinks, and they put it in the fridge next to the organic drinks. So a regular kid who's 10 years old walking that location and they open the fridge, they will see that, wow, this is an organic store. My mom come here. This is all organic drinks. Pick it up. They just buy a bottle of sugar. Literally. Because when you hear high fructose, sugar, then it have artificial flavoring, you just bought a bottle of sugar in liquid form. The flavor. False advertising. Purely false advertising to get the buck to be higher. Now, a place like Whole Food will check the product before they put it in the refrigerator, because they don't want somebody like me, who I call myself the educated customer, / I go in there, I'm not looking to sue nothing, but I will go call the manager and say, yo, and I'll point it out. Because I don't want my kids or you yourself to be getting caught with the false advertisement. So false labeling is a way of them making more money. That's why you got to take charge of your life when it comes to organic foods. And I'm going to look into the camera and say this for everybody in the room. You have to take charge of your life and make it your business to read every product and educate yourself on the different things that kills you in product labeling. Because they change the names. One year they tell you no MSG, but MSG is monosodium glutamate. But then there's other ways to use preservatives that has the same MSG in it, and we all love Chinese food.
Today, I want to review another hot topic that got enormous play in the media, and that is that organic food really isn't worth it because it wasn't really nutritionally different than non-organic food. You might have even heard statements like, organic produce is no better than conventional produce. You are just merely being ripped off. Interestingly, this study was published from one of my favorite schools, Stanford, which is the hub of Silicon Valley and likely responsible for being a major catalyst in the tech revolution. But this study was not about tech. It was about the food you eat to stay healthy. Just like the egg study, the clear message here is that when you see a study in the media widely promoted that contradicts something in natural medicine that makes absolutely no sense to you, violates just about every rule of common sense, the first response should be one of suspicion. To seek to understand what is the underlying motive here to deceive you. And this study is deception on steroids. Unfortunately, it's just not as easy to determine that by review as it is by reviewing the egg study. So I thought I'd go through and help you understand how this deception occurred in this study. First off, this study was what is called a meta-analysis. And while that may sound intimidating, all it means is that it was not a study by itself, but where it did independent research, but it merely reviewed other studies to see if it could come up with a conclusion based on all these other evaluations. In this case, this research actually analyzed 237 different studies on this topic. And here is their main conclusion. Even though the report admits that there are significantly lower urinary pesticide levels among children consuming organic versus conventional diets because researchers could not detect any higher levels of nutrients, their conclusion would be that organic is not any healthier. So it is clear, very clear, crystal clear, that they did not hold any value at all in foods having less pesticides and chemicals. They put no value at all. They put actually all the value on the emphasis on the nutrient level. So let's take this and examine this carefully one step at a time. I don't know about you, but I am absolutely not fond of having pesticides in my food because I believe there is abundant evidence that they are harmful. But this study did not review any of that evidence. They freely admitted that there were lower levels, but they just dismissed that as irrelevant. Now, that is where you can go to the internet and do your own research and seeing if having lower pesticides is important for you. Additionally, this study never even addressed the long-term environmental benefits of organic farming versus the industrialized model that is pervasive in the United States today. Now, I have done that analysis and reviewed the concerns of pesticides in my food, and I am personally convinced that these are something that I want to avoid. But you might reach a different conclusion, so I'd encourage you to do your own research. But most likely if you do and you search through it, you'll reach the same conclusion I did and want to avoid them. And thus, we can see that this study is fatally flawed on that basis alone. But let's go a step further and see if we can find any reasons why they may want to deceive you or mislead you. Do you think that the sudden concerted effort to debunk organics might be related to the fact that the health benefits of an organic diet actually threatens the profits of one or more big industries, and that these benefits are considered inconvenient truths that need to be quenched? Here is where it gets interesting. One of the co-authors of this study is a former researcher with the Tobacco Institute, and one of his main jobs was to construct these hatchet jobs for the inconvenient signs that showed a connection between smoking and lung cancer. And they were effective at this, very effective, because for many years they were able to brainwash the public that smoking had nothing to do with lung cancer. It was just a coincidence that people who smoke got lung cancer. Of course, we all know now that it was a lie. Even people who smoke know it's a lie, but at least smokers now realize the risk they are taking and are not being fooled and deceived and brainwashed. And they have only themselves to blame for any diseases that may come down with the result of smoking. Now, one of the other co-authors actually had published previous studies showing that organic farming could be a biosecurity risk. And this is where it gets interesting, and it seems to make sense, given that the California-based Stanford has such a huge stake in agricultural biosecurity, which is funded by an outside source, and given that the controversy over genetically engineered foods is growing, it makes sense that this review would come out at this time and receive such widespread attention. So hopefully this information will help give you the perspective of how to respond to new information that you see in the media that really contradicts what you know to be true. Because if that's the case, then you really want to think hard, think twice, and look through it really carefully, because most likely there's going to be some underlying deception involved because of some conflict of interest or some ulterior motive that the authors have. So this is the type of information you need to have this critical thinking capacity so that you can evaluate these articles as they appear in the media, because you ultimately want to take control of your health.